some very well-known conspiracies as well as some not so well-known conspiracies. So what's going to happen is we're just going to take a deep dive. So I personally have no stake in any of these conspiracies. I have like I'm not a I'm not going to say I'm a believer or a non-believer in any of them. um, Tonight is purely research. So what's going to happen is we're going to look at some of the conspiracies, then we're going to use Chat GPT as well as Google searches and just the whole internet in general to try and figure out like as much as we can about said conspiracy. And if at the end of what we have found, you can then decide whether that conspiracy is something that is a conspiracy, as in like it doesn't make too much sense to you, or it's something that you're like, you know what, could see this, this kind of makes sense. So that's the game plan. So let's go right ahead and dive into the first one. I believe this one is about Russian soldiers who turned to stone. So yeah, apparently you guys are about to see the video right here. But a quick breakdown: missile strike uh, onto like a UFO or whatever. It lands or it crashes, and some Russian soldiers turned into stone apparently. Let's find out what it wants here. Oops, sorry, pressed the wrong thing there.
An object began to buzz and hiss sharply and then became brilliant white. In a few seconds, the spheres
These
grew
are all
much
gonna
bigger
be from
and
the Joe
exploded like
Rogan podcast.
flaring
A
up
lot
an
of them.
extremely bright light. At that very instant, 23 soldiers who had watched the phenomenon turned into stone poles. Yeah, only
Poles.
two soldiers who stood in the shade and were less exposed to the luminous explosion survived.
For context, the UFO incident is said to have taken place in 1942, and while there is no physical evidence of this particular craft, we can't say for certain that it didn't happen. After all, this wouldn't be the first time the government has hidden extraterrestrial discoveries from the public, and also the complete 250-page file has never been released to the public. Joe Rogan reads the concluding section of the CIA document exploring just how advanced alien tech.
So this part here, apparently, Joe Rogan is reading a text that's actually from the CIA. I believe it's a CIA document on this particular incident. So that is something that we're gonna have to look at. Maybe see if we can find that actual document that he's gonna be reading off of, and take a look at it for ourselves.
Technology might actually be, and it raises a critical question. If aliens exist, do we truly stand a chance against them?
The CIA representative stated, if the KGB file corresponds to reality, this is an extremely menacing.
So that's a big thing there that we can't just gloss past. They literally said if it corresponds to reality, which means they don't really know. I mean, if something like this like actually happens, right, where a bunch of soldiers get turned into stone, right? You'd imagine there would be extensive documentation on such an event. We would be trying to figure out what the flip happened. You know what I mean? So just him going off there and saying if it corresponds to reality is already something that you need to keep in mind. It's not something that we can just gloss over, and that's why I said after we watch this and we figure out, we're not going to watch the whole thing, we're just going to watch a little bit more. Then we're going to go and do some research onto these KGB soldiers that turned into stone.
In case the aliens possess such weapons and technology to go beyond all our assumptions, they can stand up for themselves if attacked. But the thing is, they're saying if the file corresponds to reality, that means there's a
If this is real, they're tough.
There we go.
Yeah, they can fuck with you.
The two also discuss the possibility that some of the so-called alien tech discoveries might not be alien at all. Joe wonders if it's just a smokescreen. Could the government be blaming extraterrestrials to cover up their top secret projects?
I think some of it has to be ours. I think some of it has to be like super advanced drone technology that we don't want everyone knowing about. And
See, that's something that I actually talk about with my friends all the time too. The fact that a lot of these UFOs, UFO literally stands for unidentified flying object. We always assume that this unidentified flying object is from space, but it's just a flying object that's unidentified. It could be a frisbee for all you know. You know, it's just somebody could throw a frisbee and somebody sees it passing and can call it a UFO. That's a UFO. It's an unidentified flying object. So we need to remove the whole alien connotation with UFOs. Like UFO doesn't always mean alien. You know what I mean?
it's probably some black ops shit. But I don't think that's all of it. I think it's also possible that we've been visited. It just makes sense. It sounds so stupid. That's part of the problem of even talking about it because it sounds dumb. Because there's no evidence. So you have to believe in something when there's no evidence of it, like some blurry photographs.
Yeah. So that's another thing because if we actually have been visited, don't you guys think there would be like a lot more like concrete evidence of it, right? Like if something did come or some things do come and visit us from like outer space or whatever, there would be like it's always as he said like some grainy footage from like the 80s or some like th- we don't have any concrete proof, right? So it's all speculation, it's all belief, you know.
But but then when you just think about the size of the universe itself and the fact that we exist here on this planet. We're real. We know we're real.
To end this segment, Post talks about how, even without solid evidence, many people still believe in the existence of aliens to some degree.
I don't know. It's so weird, man. I don't know. And you're talking about the oh shit moment. I think we've been so like normalized to it, like ET, all this shit.
Yeah.
Growing up watching this shit. So
All right. So now they're gonna go into some other things, but what I do want to look at right now is these Russian soldiers that allegedly or turned into stone, right? So that is something that I'm actually very interested in researching. So I'm gonna use Chat GPT because it has connection, like it's connected to the entire internet. So I'm gonna ask, what do you know about the Russian soldiers turning into stone? Are there any articles? Are there any links to articles you can provide? I also want to find like this what's it called? He did say that there was like a KGB document that he was reading from. Also, can you provide me a link to the you know what, I don't know, that might be asking for too much. Let's just see what it says here first. So it's gonna search the web and then we're gonna find out. So in the meantime, well, so the story of Russian soldiers allegedly turned into stone by extraterrestrial beings has gained attention due to a declassified CIA document. This document recounts an incident where Soviet troops reportedly shot down a UFO during a training exercise in Ukraine. According to the report, 5 humanoid beings emerged from the wreckage, merged into a spherical form, and emitted a blinding light that petrified 23 soldiers. 2 soldiers, shielded from the light, survived and provided testimony. The KGB is said to have recovered the petrified remains and the UFO, transporting them to a secret facility near Moscow for analysis. Soviet scientists allegedly determined that the soldiers' cellular structure had transformed into limestone. Holy macaroni. However, skepticism surrounds the authenticity of this account. The CIA document is a reprint from the Ukrainian newspaper. So this alleged allegedly CIA document is actually a reprint from a newspaper. Like, come on, reprint from a newspaper. So that could have been. Anyways, let me continue reading that here. Turnopol how do I say that word? Veternity? Veternity. Um, which itself cited the Canadian Weekly World News, a publication known for sensational and satirical content. Critics argue that the lack of original sources and the nature of the publication involved cast doubt on the veracity of the story. In summary, while the declassified CIA document represents a compelling narrative, its origins in tabloids and the absence of corroborating evidence suggest that the tale of soldiers turned to stone may be more myth than reality. I mean, I guess that solves that, but let's click on the 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 link anyways. Holy ads, declassified Cold War era CIA files, details Soviet clash with aliens who witnesses say turned soldiers to stone. Blah blah blah. There's a video here that's not gonna play U.S. House. Oh shit, that's ads. Just pause that before it even plays. So this is that document that Joe Rogan was reading. I'm assuming. A declassified Cold War era file from the CIA has gone viral over its coverage of a supposed clash between Soviet soldiers and a UFO, passengers of which reportedly turned the troops to stone before blasting off. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, the CIA acquired a 250-page KGB report recounting the events that transpired after a platoon fired at a flying saucer over Ukraine. The report included eyewitness accounts and pictures of the aftermath, which one American agent described as a horrific picture of revenge on the part of extraterrestrial creatures. A picture that makes one's blood freeze. So I don't know, guys. This one is it's kinda iffy. I'm not too sure about this one. So I'll put that in the debunked pile for now. Maybe later on they might have like some new information about it, and then we will revisit it. But for now, that one I'm putting in the debunk pile. All right, let's watch
It's like,
some
yeah,
more.
no shit. Everyone, no matter what the surveys say or anything, everyone thinks there's like something going on.
Everyone. Yeah. There's a few people that still are very incredulous. Elon, believe it or not, is incredulous. He's famously said if aliens are real, they sure are subtle.
They sure are subtle. He's right about that.
Up next,
That was
James
my whole
Fox tells
point too. Like, I mean, if they were among us and if they had been visiting, right? I feel like somebody would have like something would have been caught by now. You know, like all these things that we get, they're always shrouded in so much mystery and confusion. Like the soldiers turning into stone thing. Um, if it wasn't for the internet, I don't think I haven't seen that on the news or anything. I just seen it like on the internet. You know what I mean?
was the story of a police officer's encounter with aliens while on patrol in New Mexico in 1964. And what makes it even more shocking is the government's swift attempt to silence the officer. This is a conversation from episode number 1976.
One of the best, most well-documented cases in U.S. history took place at Socorro, New Mexico, April 24th, 1964, at 5 o'clock with a police officer was on duty by the name of Juan Zamora. The best case in U.S. history. The best documented case. The first military officer to arrive on the scene got there, the bushes were still smoking. I mean, the imprints in the ground of the craft, the footprints, they got diagrams of this stuff.
Take a look at this picture of the site where Officer Lonnie Zamora saw a UFO. James explains how the Air Force went out of its way to silence Lonnie, ensuring he didn't talk about it publicly. And according to James, the experience completely turned Lonnie's life upside down.
Daughter and his wife told me earlier, and his wife said, well, Lonnie was never the same after that case.
But, so what did Lonnie see?
Lonnie saw two beings at the base of an egg-shaped craft that was landed in an arroyo in Socorro, New Mexico in broad daylight. Lonnie looked out the window of his patrol car. He saw something that caught his eye, and then this object landed. He was actually in hot pursuit at the time. He gave up pursuit to go investigate what was going on.
Okay, so let's get more context into what's happening here before we even continue with this video. So this is about Lonnie, New Mexico, UFO case. Let's load up some information.
And he sees this object in the arroyo in the desert on the ground. It's such a well documented case. And he rolls down his car window and he's looking at him and he's going, am I looking at like an overturned car? What the hell am I looking at? And then he sees two little figures. He said they were childlike at the base of the craft, and one of them locked eyes with him.
Oh boy.
And his wife said he was never the same after that. But
How do you describe them?
he said they were small, childlike. It's small. And they had white tight coveralls. This is a close encounter of the third kind.
To end this segment,
Sounds like
James dives
Minions.
deeper into Officer Lonnie Zamora's incredible encounter with the UFO. He describes how the craft looked, the mind-blowing speed at which it moved, and one detail that stood out, a mysterious symbol imprinted on its body.
The object was sitting on the ground, not for very long, just a few minutes. Lonnie saw the beings, and he went like around to get a closer look. I mean, he was like, what the hell am I looking at? And he drove his car around to get a closer look, and he lost contact for a second while he drove around to get a closer look. Now he's within 50 feet of this egg thing sitting on the ground. And
All right, let's see what we can get from that. So Lonnie Zamora UFO incident, which occurred on April 24th of 1964. Wow, this was a while ago. Near Socorro, New Mexico, is one of the most compelling and well-documented UFO sightings in U.S. history. All right, so the story goes that at approximately 5:45 p.m., Socorro police officer Lonnie Zamora was pursuing a speeding vehicle when he heard a loud roar and saw a bluish flame rising from the desert southwest of his location. Believing a dynamite shack might have exploded, he diverted to investigate. Upon approaching, Zamora observed a shiny egg-shaped object about 150 feet away, with two figures in white coveralls standing nearby. As he got closer, the figures entered the craft, which then emitted a loud roar and a bluish-orange flame before ascending vertically and disappearing into the sky. Physical evidence at the site included burned bush, scorched earth, and impressions in the ground, suggesting a heavy object that landed there. Wow. So, investigations and theories. The incident was investigated by several entities, including the U.S. Air Force's Project Blue Book. Project Blue Book. We've heard about that before, which ultimately classified the case as unknown due to the lack of conclusive evidence and the inability to identify the object observed by Zamora. Various theories have been proposed to explain the sighting. Lunar lander test. Some suggest Zamora witnessed a test of a lunar landing device by personnel from the nearby White Sands missile range. Hoax by students, tourism stunt. Anyways, there is a Wikipedia about it. UFO Vault, the 1964 case, Project Blue blog, the Lonnie Zamora's UFO incident, and a UFO story. So this one seems to have a lot of documentation behind it. Let's take a look at UFO Vault. Probably gonna be, oh, doesn't even work. Let's look at the Wikipedia page. Uh, so that's the same image we saw in the video. Okay, so I do have some background into that story now, so this will make a lot more sense.
He gets out of the patrol car. It starts. It starts making some weird noise, and it has a blue flame that comes out. And he said it was not like a rocket flame where it would hit the ground and dust everything up, but it pierced the ground like a knife through warm butter.
Hmm.
And then when it got about 20 feet off the ground, it went completely silent with no flame. No.
So here's another thing, right? For a guy that is seeing something as spectacular as this, right? Let's say you just see this flying saucer. He seems to be capturing like a lot of information, noting that it hovered, this and that. I feel like if you're seeing something like this for the first time, you've never seen a UFO before, like you've never seen an alien spaceship before. Now you're seeing this thing for the first time, you would be so freaked out that I doubt that you're gonna notice how it's floating and all that. You're just gonna be super freaked out. But that's just me. I guess he's built different.
Nothing. You can hear a pin drop. There was a symbol on the side of the craft. It was in yellow, and it was about 3 feet tall, and it was
Like, dude noticed a lot for somebody who's freaked out, who's seeing like a UFO. He's even noticing the symbols. Like, I mean, I guess he also is a cop, so he is trained for these kinds of things. So it does make sense, Cops are like trained to keep their cool and like notice everything about a situation. So that does make sense, actually. I will give him that.
There's 2 lines and a line on top.
Take a look at the image of the symbol Officer Lonnie saw on the side of the craft, and here's an illustration of what the aliens may have looked like from Officer Lonnie's point of view. Next, Joe Rogan and David Grush discuss the concept that aliens may have created humans. They explore the topic of genetic manipulation and the seeding of life on Earth by...
So this one I've actually heard about a lot. And this is one of those ones that you actually can't prove and you can't disprove. Like, I don't know. It's just one of those ones that you take on the chin and you move.
extraterrestrial beings. This is a conversation from episode number 2065.
If these things that we're experiencing are the natural progression of what happens when you do seed life on planet, or you do accelerate biological life, you do have some sort of a genetic intervention where you take this thing that it has emerging intelligence and you accelerate it, and that thing will in turn, with all of its desire for innovation and creativity, and also all of its desire to control resources and have power and have influence, that it will eventually lead to the creation of what we're seeing. That these things are the next stage of this process. Yeah. And that maybe we're dealing with one form of that next stage, but there's another stage that's a million years more advanced than that, that's far superior, that doesn't even have a biological limitation in terms of physical space.
That's
that
interesting.
It exists completely in some other undetectable realm.
While Joe doesn't explicitly mention aliens in this specific context, his suggestion of a deliberate act of seeding life or genetic intervention could imply the involvement of a more advanced civilization, possibly alien in nature. However, it's important to note that Joe doesn't provide concrete evidence for this theory. It remains speculative and open to interpretation. As the conversation progressed, Joe addressed the skepticism surrounding advanced extraterrestrial beings crashing their spacecraft. He offers a couple of theories to explain why this could be happening.
I always wonder, when there's a crash, or when there's a body, or when there's a this, that, like, and people say, well, what, like, if they're so advanced, why are they crashing? Well, hold on, which version are we looking at? We're not saying there's one thing that's visiting us. If there's one thing that's visiting us and we know where this one thing is, we can say, oh, well, that thing, it deals with a completely different solar system. The sun is vulnerable. It doesn't have asteroid clouds. It doesn't have all these different things where it's like, it doesn't have a planet that has super volcanoes. Maybe life evolved in a more stable environment, and it allowed it to get to a far greater technological level, but not the ultimate.
Yeah, we might be testing the extent of their adaptability. And like I said, are they crashing by accident?
Right.
Mission failure?
I mean, if they're crashing, it must we must assume it's by accident. You know, why would aliens purposely crash on Earth and crash? Like by definition, crash is an accident. Like to crash on purpose is wild, but guess who knows what goes on in an alien mind? You know?
Or on purpose.
Joe makes it clear to Grush how little we know about the universe. He highlights the vastness of the universe compared to human life. He also discusses the James Webb Space Telescope's recent discoveries, which have raised questions about the universe's age and timeline.
Perfect. So this one is a big one, and I'm actually going to get into this one more concretely tomorrow. Right now I'm going to take a break because this one I actually have a whole deep dive that I want to do for it, because I actually have a bunch of research that I did on this one, because this is actually science and scientific, and I can actually show you guys stuff on this one. But as I said, that will be for tomorrow. Right now, my brain has been filled with too much alien stuff and I need to go to sleep. So take care, guys. I'll catch you back here again tomorrow. Don't miss that stream. You know, I'll have some cool stuff to show you guys tomorrow.